international speaker. We'll talk to him. We'll talk about it a little later. In the meanwhile, I thought I'll briefly tell you about what event happening at MMA, so that you don't miss them and you can attend them. We've got some interesting events lined up for you. One on Monday, the 15th of July. We have a review on Union Budget 1920, because we are doing it a little later, a week after the budget is announced, because that's the time you will really know what is the final prints and what are the intricacies, what are the amendments that brought in. So many things actually, especially quite a bit of things you will see in the newspapers, what's happening in terms of investment, high value investors, why they have been surcharged, how it's impacting the investment in trust, and a lot of things is happening tomorrow on the 15th at Mr. Tyagarajan Chartered Accountant is going to be the speaker. It's happening from 6 to 7:20 p.m. at Bhupati & Co. Then on 20th of July, it's a very interesting event which we are doing jointly with FICCI. We have done a number of events on this, including thing. This is basically to make the people aware of the importance in the society of what should be done. The seminar on prevention of sexual harassment, POSH Act, there's a POSH Act, prevention of sexual harassment at workplace, because this is the one we want to really sensitize our members as well as others, so that our place become much safer to work and the members get enlightened to learn. It's a full day seminar we are doing jointly with FICCI. This is happening on the 20th of July from morning 9:30 to 5:45 p.m. We have waived the total fee for MMA members because we want them to come and enjoy the day listening to some almost 20 speakers who are going to speak. There's a lot of case studies on this. Some of the members may recall that we have done the work on Visakha Committee report and a number of other cases on similar lines, and people really appreciate it. We thought we must do this, and please do come on the 20th. If you've not registered, the mail has been sent to you today. Do come and attend. It's a nice event, well spent. You will become more wiser. You're wiser, you will be making others too wiser, so that the place for the women in India, women, our workplace, will become much safer and enjoyable for each one of us who are going to employ them, be employer, be employee. Then on the 24th of July, we have another international speaker, importance of TQM for sustainable growth. You have a speaker from Hiroshi Osada, is coming from Japan, and he's a renowned author of Kaizen Advantage, and he's going to be there talking to us about Kaizen from a Japanese thing. It's an outstanding opportunity for us. And Mr. Dr. Ravichandran, Executive Director and CEO of Pharma Lucas TV, is going to chair the session. Please do come and listen to him, because if you do Kaizen Advantage and the TQM for sustainable growth, I think you'll do a lot of good, not only to our industry, the place where you work. As a personal, you will gain a lot, actually. Then on Wednesday, 31st July, another interesting event. We have been doing collaborative programs with the Andhra Chamber of Commerce. The 90th program we are doing it. I thought 90th is a milestone anyway, and many of the cricketers get out at 90, so we don't want to do that. So we want to carry on. So let's celebrate it 90 onwards, so that it will reach the 100 very soon. And this is the event which you are doing with Andhra Chamber on the 31st of July. Partnering excellence always for us in MMA. The theme is India's trade, commerce and industry, opportunity for exponential growth. This is a subject on which we are going to discuss. And the speaker is Lakshmi Narayanan, you all know, former Vice Chairman of Cognizant, and he is going to be the speaker. And Indra Dutt, President of Andhra Chamber, is going to be there. What we are actually discussing is how is India's growth story. We are already 7.3. We are expected to go 7.5 next year. We're going to be 5 trillion billion of trade, and the whole world look up to you as the engine of growth for us. So under these circumstances, what we should be doing in terms of aligning your businesses, aligning your industries. So this is one which are going to be discussed on 31st of July. So we will have a fantastic interaction with the members of Andhra Chamber, plus outstanding economists will be attending this event. So please do come and attend the event. So we got a number of events fixed up for August 2. I just do it with 2 so that we don't miss out on the time for this evening. We have a success story of it was done by Mr. Ramesh, B.A. Ramesh. He's the managing director of Tangamail Jewelry Limited. Tangamail is one of the first public limited company to go in jewelry business. You won't know that they even having gone jewelry business, having the duties keep going up every year. The woman in India doesn't get tired of buying jewelry. How is he doing survival? What is he making money? I think it'll be a nice story to listen from him. He's going to come and speak on 12th of August. We're also having another event. The date is not fixed. Empowering entrepreneurs. The panel discussion on 2 outstanding business persons. Young businessman. I think he has got the award of Economic Times Award of Under 40 Outstanding Achiever. You all know Vikram Vaidyanathan of Matrix Partners from Bangalore, along with his partner, is going to come and speak. Panel, 2 of them, and which is going to be moderated by Ramki. So these are some of the subjects which I thought I'll deal with you and briefly share with you, so that you don't miss any one of them. And Coming to today's topic, I must thank Krish, a dear friend of mine, who has really gone out of the way to make this happen at MMA. You all must be wondering, I'm telling all this, is this only to make the people who are eating outside, latecomers to come and settle down, so they don't miss that's one of the intentions. So I take this opportunity to even showcase what MMA is doing about. That's the intention. I know you must be getting bored, what's happening and all. I finished it. Now we get down to the moment because it's the only way I can get my members. Still, I see a couple of them enjoying the hot chocolate souffle, but they'll be coming in any moment, I suppose. Now, this is a subject which is very dear. Not many people understand. Not many people have spoken to it. And we're also going to have a privilege of launching a very book which Srikanth will brief. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome Andrew, who's already there at the stage, who is going to be the speaker. And I'll also request Krish to please come onto the stage. Krish is a very well-wisher of MMA, and let me have the privilege of introducing Krish briefly to you. Krish is a family business mentor for 30 years, and he's done phenomenal number of families in business. Some of the interesting thing what he has done is creating governance model families, protecting the family business assets, growth, handling major crises in family businesses, mentoring for next generation of business, board membership of number of companies on the negotiation teams, and also is a spiritual guide and counseling during the tough times of the times and guidance, and also covered coaching and guidelines difficulty to family members. I had known him speaking. He was a part of our family business conclave. He's one of the outstanding achiever, great leader, go-getter. It's always a pleasure to interact with him and do events together. We enjoyed hosting you, Krish, and we enjoyed bringing Andrew, and I'm quite sure it's going to be a great, fascinating evening. Over to you, Krish. I'm here.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. So, the book is officially launched, and the first book was purchased for the Madras Management Association. So, if you could have the projector on. We don't know how to do an e-book launch. Technically, you know how to do a book launch. Somebody gives the book and they unwrap it and they do it. How do you do an e-book launch? You can't wrap the laptop and say, okay, unwrap it and do something, okay? So this is how we'll do it. We'll have a group captain press the...
As part of the launch, you may like to share with the members that what are interesting. Sorry, sir? Digital India? We are moving, sir. MMA also moving. Digital. Now you can read this book in Kindle from MMA library.
So I'm very happy to announce that, normally, thank you. I'm very happy to announce that normally Amazon allows you to do a pre-order. So we did a pre-order across the whole of the globe. So in all the 12 Amazon stores, we had it launched. So the book, before it got launched, it became a bestseller in the US, in Netherlands, in Japan, in Germany. It's not possible to make it a bestseller in India because of the GST model, they don't allow a pre-order model in India alone. So by tomorrow, hopefully it'll climb it. So you can see that there is an orange status there. Can you see the orange color there? So that makes it a best-selling author. So I promised Andy that if you come to India, I'll make you a best-selling author. So this is an Amazon best-selling author. I've given my promise. All right, so we can close the projector. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all. Thank you very much for having come here today. And I would like to thank Group Captain Vijay Kumar. I've been associated with MMA for a very long time. Way back 25 years ago as a college student, I used to come to MMA because I had a student membership, and that was the only place where the library was air-conditioned. So in order to escape the hot sun and come and read the book, MMA would be the refuge in Nelson Manikam Road. And I've seen several people come and go in terms of leadership, and to be very honest, not because Group Captain Vijay Kumar helped us organize this and promoted this, but really I found a very different kind of person and a warm person who was willing to support and really do things. So it's my pleasure to associate with MMA under your leadership per se. Yeah. So my association with Andrew Austin. I don't know how many of you are familiar. I'm considered an expert in the subject of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming in India. My ticket to expertise is the fact that I studied with one of the co-founders, Dr. John Grinder. He was my mentor for a couple of years. So I studied with him in 7 different countries abroad and worked with him. And therefore, for a long time, I was one of the topmost experts here in India. Now, in 2009, when I came back and I was working, one of my colleagues called me and said, you know, there's an Englishman who's doing a workshop on NLP in Trivandrum. I think Trivandrum? Calicut? Trivandrum. Dr. Abraham was organizing that. And I'm like, who's this guy, white guy who's landed in my country? You know, it's like, it's a British, you know, you land in my country and you want to take over my market. Who's this white guy who's landed? And I looked at the internet and the program was called Weight Loss Using NLP. I said, that's interesting. I never thought of it. That's quite an interesting application. So I said, let's go and see what it is like. And I went to Trivandrum to do the program. It was interesting. He had come with another friend of his, Nick Kemp. And they spoke and I said, oh, that looks interesting. They're presenting NLP in ways and means that I have not seen and understood. So then the second day he said, I'm doing something on metaphors. Would you like to sit and do that program? And I actually didn't understand what it was. And I had studied metaphors extensively with Dr. John Grinder, who was a PhD in linguistics. So I said, my teacher was quite good, so I really don't think I need to do it. Then he said, this is not the metaphors that you know of. It's a little different. Now, I was a little tempted, but then I said, okay, let me stay behind and attend it. Now, something very interesting happened. He asked you to close your eyes, and when you think about a particular problem in your life or a situation, he asked you to close your eyes and ask the question, what's it like? And then I closed my eyes and said, I can see a compound wall here, I can see an ocean here. And then he started speaking for 5 minutes. And in the 5 minutes, it looked like somebody, downloaded my horoscope and gave me the entire prediction of this. I'm like, these are things even my mother doesn't know. How the hell did he find out? Okay. So I was like feeling acutely embarrassed. I said, this guy is dangerous. He's got something that I don't understand. And we left it at that. He then asked me, would you be willing to promote my programs? And I'm like, you know what? I myself am an NLP trainer. I don't need to promote anybody. So we left it at that. But what I did make it a point was that every time he came to India, whether he came to Bangalore or Delhi, I would make it a point to go and attend his programs. I must say that every time he came, he would say and share something new and remarkable that I was always very surprised about. I'm like, where did he get all this information from? So one of the times when he came to India, he said, have you read the book Phantoms in the Brain? Phantoms in the Brain by Vilayanur Ramachandran, our own Indian guy, doctor who wrote about the phantom limb pain. And he spoke about the way in which he's taken that work and made it really workable, which is that if somebody has an amputation of the arm or the leg, all right, sometimes they have pain or itches. What do you do when you have an itch on an arm that's been cut off, right? The arm doesn't exist. Technically, the energetic exists, but you have an itch. So he created a box with a mirror inside, so where you put the other arm, which is okay. So then the brain thinks that this is there, and you have somebody else itch on this arm, and when you look at the mirror, you feel as if your right arm is being itched, and it gives benefit. So that was something interesting. Now, the next thing I saw on him was a YouTube video, and he took a very complex process in NLP, which is about how to remove phobias. One of the things about NLP that's really remarkable is that it revolutionized psychology. It revolutionized, before NLP came, if you had to work with the phobia, somebody had, say, a phobia or a fear of flying or spiders or public speaking for that matter, if you went to a normal therapy, during the methods using like cognitive dissonance or systematic desensitization, it would take quite a few number of sessions and months at least to get rid of it. But when NLP came on that, the two founders, John Grinder and Richard Bandler, what they did was they went and modeled some of the best therapists and coaches, and they found what are the ways in which they can make remarkable changes. So there is a technique by way of which in 5 to 10 minutes you can remove the phobia, fear, successfully of most cases. So we've done it. It's a pretty very important thing. It's in fact the first method that has been accredited in scientific journals by the NLP R&R team. Now, what I saw him do something was remarkable. He took that complex technique and made a video by using just a mobile phone, you can use it without knowing the technique. If you ever get to see, you can see it. So what he did was, he said, have somebody going through the phobic reaction, make somebody take a video of you. So that's called one dissociation. And then when you're watching that video, have another person record that, watching that. It's called double dissociation. So in NLP, it's found that if you double dissociate and you run in a particular sequence, the phobia is no longer having that impact on you. Now, it's a technique that we go and do and learn in a 10-day practitioner training. And I was really surprised that he boiled it down to a 4-minute YouTube video, which means that anybody who doesn't have to go to a NLP practitioner training, you can really do that. Long time back, there was a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution written by Thomas Kuhn, and he said that the revolution in a particular field will be done by people not in the field, but by people outside of the field. So when Bandler came in, he was a computer student, and when Grinder came in, he was a linguist, and they did a remarkable breakthrough in psychology, management, and sales. Now, Andy has a career in nursing in psychiatry wards in the UK. So when he came in, he revolutionized NLP into a very different model and took it to a different extent altogether. The next revolution that he did was a model known as integral eye movement therapy. It was a simple method by way of which, by manipulating your eye movements, you can take care of the trauma, phobias, fears, identity imprints, and belief change. Now, it sounds very incredulous to hear it. You'll have to do a workshop or see some of the YouTube demos to see the effect of that. So one of the things I always felt after some time, that this guy is doing some incredibly good work. And every time he comes, he's got some really new stuff. And the last time he came, I said, I have a client who's got a problem with the business. Can you talk to her? Because she's losing money in that business for a long time. How many people running your own business here? Anybody running your own business? Good. Now, this is a client of mine who's been losing 6 to 8 crores every year in her business. Okay? Now, I've been telling her for many years to close the business. She's not been listening to me. And I thought it might be interesting if I ask Andy to talk to her. So Andy asked her a very simple question: what's your business like? And her response was, my business is like my baby. And then Andy said, you know what, we shouldn't even spend money on this consulting session. This session is over. I want to give you the bad news. The business will never be profitable. So the lady was really upset. She said, how can you say that? He said, no baby will take care of its parents. Do you get it? I was like astounded, like how much intelligence it takes to deduce that from one sentence and one phrase that's given, that person is absolutely unfit to run a business. Do you get my point? So she came back with the retort, can my baby not grow up? Our man retorted back, how long have you been running the business? He said 7 years. So he said, in 7 years, if your baby has not grown up, you must accept the fact that it's a retarded child. Okay? So I'm very happy to say that my client decided to sell her business to a more competitive, more sales-driven, profit-oriented people rather than her, and is doing much well with that. Now, when Andy did that kind of change in that one business consult, I was very clear. I said, we need to bring him to India because, you see, I've had the good fortune working as a business family mentor with some of the largest business families in India. That one of the things is money is not a problem. They can go to anybody, but they prefer to come to somebody who can deliver on results. So one of the things that I always found is they prefer to go abroad for management consulting. They prefer to bring somebody from abroad for coaching or counseling or whatever it is. They don't prefer our Indian guys. We are not in terms of parity as far as the knowledge, the know-how, and the results that we deliver. So I had a thought, that if we bring a field that is ahead of its time, that is making inroads, that is pioneering changes, if we bring it to India, then maybe we can then take the lead. So if you see, the e-book is being launched in India. All right? Earlier, books used to be launched in the US, all right? And then it would take 10, 15 years before it would come to India. I can tell you stories about nightmares about how we used to send money to the US. They would have to send it shipping to India, and it would take 3 months. And then we'd have to pool money with 4 or 5 of our friends, would pool in the money for that. And then we'd have to fight on who'll get the original and who'll get the photocopy. So we usually used to toss it and decide that. Today, ebooks are available for everybody in one click. The whole market parity has changed. So I'm hoping that by having people like Andy come in and bring their revolutionary methodology, we can take India to a different place altogether in management consulting, in communication, in psychology and psychotherapy. So that's one of the reasons that I decided that it would be really, really useful to bring him here. Just a little bit about the book. The book is Andy's experiences in NLP. He's got 80 different case studies. So 80 different ways in which he has applied NLP on different people. But the most interesting thing is the preface. The book is all about, many of these chapters are about his adventures in India. So how many of you have seen the book, the Kindle book? You saw the book, right? The Rainbow Machine. How many of you bought the book? Good. The rest of you, don't leave the place without buying the book, okay? Please do buy the book. It's at a promotional offer of 49 rupees. Do buy the book. It's got various stories in the place, 80 different stories of how it's applied in psychology for problems and phobias, obsessive compulsion, messiah complex, handling communication, violent teenagers, all the entire gamut of it. It's hilarious reading, all right? So if you read the first chapter, I'll just leave you with a small anecdote in that, and I'll have to use some foul words, just bear with me on that. In the introduction, Andy talks about his experience in India. So he comes to India the first time, and he goes to Varanasi of all places. And in Varanasi, he goes to a very small, nondescript restaurant on the Ghats. And there, along with the food in the dessert section, in this, where the sharbats and desserts are given, so he looks at it, and you see there's an item called bastard. Plain bastard. Basically, it's custard. Somebody misspelled and then somebody played on it and made it into a plain bastard. So he said, can I have the plain bastard? So the waiter comes back and says, sir, plain bastard not available today. So he said, it's okay. Ask the chef, you can give me a masala bastard. So the waiter goes back confused and comes back and said, sir, today both bastards not available. Come back on Monday morning. I'll make sure both bastards are there for you. All right? So that's the way in which he starts the book, and so you can imagine the irreverent nature in which he's done. So I don't want to take any more of my time. It's Andy's time. So over to Andy. He's going to speak about metaphors of business. Andy, my pleasure to welcome you.
And thank you so much, Krish. This is my favorite man in India. When I first started coming to India, my audiences were very, very small. I would have 4 or 5 people. And every time I come back, they keep getting bigger. And since I've met Krish, they're getting bigger and bigger. Okay, so I talk about metaphors, and as I pace up and down here, I'm going to drive the camera people crazy. So I do apologize in advance. Now, it's difficult for me to give you the whole thing in 45 minutes, to give you anything that's meaningful. So what I'd like to talk about is just some of the things that I think are useful to people. And particularly as the Management Association, I thought I'd talk a little bit about management stuff. Now, when it comes to metaphors, it's a problem. As a word, how is that possibly related to business? How can studying stories and metaphor improve people's business acumen, improve their business success, make them wealthier, improve their relationships with their employees? It's quite a difficult sell. However, it will pay a lot of dividends back to you to pay attention to some very, very small details. For example, I pay attention to when people use the word left and when the people use the word right. For example, who's right in this room? Who is most right in this room? I'm not saying you're not right over here, but you are all the people that are left. As we go this way, we get more and more right. And who is the most right up front person in the room right now? That will be you, sir. It was almost yourself, ma'am. Or the most upfront right, or the most right up front. There are some little differences. You see, somebody in the room has been left behind, and some people are right behind, and there's all those people caught in the middle. Now, when people use these sort of sentences and languages spontaneously, it starts to define the relationships they have. Now, a number of years ago, I was involved in a business which I shouldn't have been involved in. We were 50-50 partners. I thought we were friends. But when it comes to money, that changes things. Had I have known then what I know now, that the problems that happened wouldn't have happened. But had those problems not have happened, I wouldn't know what I know now. It's a steep learning curve. After things went bad, I was seeing a lawyer, giving all my money to the lawyers because they always get paid. And that was in the morning, and in the afternoon, I was asked to do a business consultation with another couple of friends who were also in a bit of trouble with each other. Now, to cut a long story short, they were equal partners in the business, long-term friends, reasonably successful. Their branding was famous. They were featured on the front page of magazine covers. They were featured overseas. They were a little bit famous. The problem is they'd never made any profit. They were just about getting by. And then they had a problem. They could not agree on how to make the company more profitable. They came to see me, a therapist. Why would business people want to talk to a therapist? I didn't know. But they said, we've heard about your reputation. You're weird enough to be able to know what to do. Thanks very much. So, these two people come to see me, and they're sitting in my little office, which was the spare bedroom of the house that we used to live in. And sat opposite me on this side is a lady who is wearing sports kit, expensive, fashionable sports kit. How does she spend her weekends? Running marathons, going to the gymnasium, doing athletics. She's a very sporty person. I say to her, what's your business like? And what do you want from your business? And she said, I want to see just how far this business can go. I want to go the full distance and just keep going. I said, enough from you. Now I talked to her business partner and best friend. And I said, okay, I have to tell you, this person did not run marathons at weekends. This is the person who looks like she spends the weekends baking cakes and eating cakes. This is not a sporty person. Okay, I say, what do you want from your business? And she said, I want to see just how big this business can grow. I want to see how big we can get and keep adding new levels to the business. And there and then, I knew I had the fastest business consultation I had ever done. One of them wants to be successful by movement and going at the distance. The other one wants to be successful by growth and expansion. Those two strategies are not compatible with each other. They are actually in conflict with each other. They both want the same thing. They both want to be successful. They want the other one to be successful. They want more money, but they had recognized their relationship had broken down when they're talking about success, simply because their language did not match. On the surface, it might well sound they're both talking the same language, but they might as well be from different countries and different cultures. It didn't match. So, all I needed to do was to get them to be able to hear, this person wants expansion and growth. That's her skill set. This person wants progress and advancement. That's her skill set. Now, between them, they need to find a way of doing that. That was really easy. They sell their famous business. Because together, they are no longer able to succeed. Because each will hold back the other or stop the growth of the other. By selling their famous brand, which they did for quite a lot of money, they can now take what they've learned. This one can go the full distance, and this one can grow really big. And they both went on very fast to be successful. That's just one of those little things you can hear if you hear people's metaphor. My other favorite one was in a human resources department that I worked in. This was a very large organization. The human resources were unable to recruit and retain their staff. A little bit ironic, I thought. Staff would come, hang around for a little while, and very quickly leave. I saw on one day, one new member of staff arrive. He stayed 1 hour and resigned and left again. The boss said to me, "I don't understand it. We're a very happy family here." I said, "You're a happy family?" "Yeah." "So who are you recruiting?" "We want the best players in the industry." So you're a happy family recruiting the best players in the industry. And she could not hear the mismatch. When I looked at the recruitment adverts, it said competitive rates of pay, top players in the industry sought, apply here. When they arrive in the department, come on into our family environment where we're all one happy family. Didn't quite work. Just like the manager I knew who saw his family as a thing to manage, he managed his family, and he saw his workplace as a family. He kind of got things around the wrong way, and he had problems both at home and he had problems in the workplace. So that's just some of the things you can hear when you are aware of the kind of language that we're listening for. Some of you take the first step. I think, what does that step look like? And is it with the left foot or the right foot that you take that first step? Some of you want to get to grips with your business. Is that the left hand or the right hand that you grip it with? And how tightly are you gripping it? Some of you at work need to stand up for yourself. But I want to know what sort of stand that is. How do you stand? And more importantly, where do you stand? And what do you stand for? Because when I know where you stand, how you stand, what you stand for, I'm going to know how I can relate to you. But if I don't know where you stand, because you keep changing your position, how can I possibly know where you stand in order to position myself? So, what I know is that opinionated people who know precisely where they stand and are fixed in their opinion are amongst the easiest people to relate to. Because I now know where I stand or where I position myself relative to the person. I don't know if that makes sense to people. I hope it does. Because I'm going to ask for a volunteer because we're going to do I can show you some stuff here with sort of more practical uses of this. Can I borrow somebody to come and join me on the stage? You don't need to do much. Your safety is guaranteed, and you will get out of this alive. Maybe a little embarrassed, but everything will be fine. Can I please have a volunteer to come and join me on the stage? Come on down, sir. Give him a round of applause. Now, I've got to say, he's very brave. He doesn't know what he's volunteered for. Wait right there. Now, as you can see, I've never met this man before. He looks like a reasonable man. He looks like a nice man. We're not very close because we don't know each other. However, as time passes, we're getting a little closer. I feel myself being drawn to him. Oh, now we're getting further apart. We're not so close as we used to be. In fact, I feel the distance between us is growing. So I'm going to move over to the people that I know are right. I'd like people to be up front. Oh, we're getting closer again. We're getting so close I can begin to feel like there's a better relationship between us. Now we're really close. I've just turned my back on him. Oh, now I might be getting in the way. I don't know what's going on in the background. It's all right. I like him. I can rely on him. I know he's got my back. Now, I'm taking the lead. He's following me. He's one of my followers, and I'm the guy who's up front. I know he's got my back. I'm in first place. I put myself first. I treat him as my number 2. Now, sometimes he holds me back, and sometimes he pushes me forwards. Now, all these things are possible from this dynamic of relationship. Now, the problem is, I get in his way, and I'm a bit of an obstruction for him. He's a really pushy kind of man. He pushes, you're doing good at this. He pushes and pushes, and sometimes he gets me started. And when I get started, there's no stopping me. Now, sometimes I like to take second place. And I like this guy, I've got his back. But sometimes I do feel that he's turned his back on me. I worry he doesn't even see where I am. He knows nothing about me at all. I'm just the guy that's in the background. And as a result, I'm falling behind in this relationship. I'm falling behind. And as he moves forwards, keep going. I'm trying to catch up, but he's just too fast for me. I can't catch up with him. And then, fortunately, he gets into trouble. His whole movement stalls, and because of those problems, we're now close again. We're side by side. In this relationship, I'm the one that's right. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he's not right. He's the guy that's always left. But we stand shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe. We're on the edge, by the way. If we take the wrong step or a step too far, we're going to go over the edge. That would be a real letdown. If I go over the edge and let myself down in front of all these people, he might be embarrassed for me, and I might not be able to pick myself up again. And I'm sure some of you have been pushed close to the edge before now. Anyone here married? Now, sometimes you're close to the edge, but the boss pushes you, and he pushes you too hard. And before you know it, he's pushed you over the edge, and there's no going back. You see, here's one of the problems. That step down is a really big step. And sometimes backing up isn't possible if it's a big step. Backing up, of course, raises my status. Now inside this relationship, we're driving the camera people crazy with this. It's great. Now in this relationship, he's the one that's right. I do feel a bit left. And not only do I feel that he's left me, but now we're getting further apart. And it's only by me recognizing that he's right can we possibly get closer again. But will he ever recognize that he has left me? I don't know if we can do the next one. It starts to get complicated. Have a seat. Go and have a seat. Sit on Krish's chair. Yeah. I apologize in advance for what I'm about to do. I apologize in advance for what I'm about to do. I didn't plan this bit. I'm now having doubts whether I should do this bit, but I'm going to do it. Can you please put your knees together? No, sit down. Put your knees together. Knees together. This is that internet moment, isn't it? Taken out of context, this could end my career. He's a nice guy. He gives me his full support. I'm a bit of a burden upon him. I weigh heavily on him, but he does give me support. Now, what I'd like to be able to do is stand on his shoulders. Shall we give it a go? It's okay, don't worry. We won't tell him, Now just imagine I'm climbed on his shoulders. Visualize that movement on him. Now he's not only giving me his full support, but he can't put me down. He's carrying me through life, as well as taking the responsibility for where I end up. Now, if I support him, I give him my full support. He weighs heavily on me. He looks down on me, I look up to him, and there's a respect differential that goes on there. So there's 7 of these basic positions, which is all very nice, right? But how does that have anything to do with management? Thank you so much. Please give him a round of applause. So I worked in a hospital department. It was a big department. It was a very, very good department. We had some of the top clinicians in the country. I was a newly qualified nurse, and I was extremely lucky to have the job that I got. And the way that I got the job was I just walked into the department and said, "Can I have a job?" And they said, "Yes." And I started the next day. So I'm working with some of the best clinicians in the country. There's a huge number of staff that work in this organization, this particular department. And the boss, who was one of the consultant surgeons, had a very, very simple position. He put the department first. So he's always in the background. Now, by putting the department first, he recruited people like me, people who just walk into the department and say, "Can I have a job?" People who are upfront, people who take the initiative by putting themselves first. So, if this is the department, so that's all the people in the department, his position is there in the background. He sees everything. These people want to take the lead, they're up front, and they know he has got their back. And the thing about this guy is, we didn't see him very often, because he's in the background, but he knew everything that was going on. Now, clinically, he'd encouraged people to give them a push. He would push them when they needed to move forwards. If they were trying too much, he could hold them back and step in to take the initiative if need be. But he pushed people to do more than they realized they could do. That whole department was filled with upfront people. They knew he had their back. That was a fantastic environment to work in. He was one of the best managers I've ever met. Now, he then retired, which I think was quite selfish, because he was then replaced by an equally brilliant manager. But that brilliant manager took a different position. He was the guy that was up front. He was a leader. And I know in management groups and in management training, leadership is a very, very high value for people. And I have to tell you, I've got to question that a little bit. It's valuable in many contexts, but it's not going to be valuable in all contexts. So now what we've got is a leader. He's going to reform the department because there's a lot of things that needed to be changed. Now we've got all of those people in the background. All of those people in second place. All of those people who themselves like to lead are no longer able to take the initiative. Because every time they take the initiative, somebody gets in their way, the new manager. What we saw in the space of about 18 months is 60 nurses resigned. There was nothing wrong with the department. The job was exactly the same job. The patients are ill in exactly the same way they were ill before. But something felt very, very different in the relationships, in the dynamics. And these people did not stick around. Now, I was one of the people that hung in there. I stayed there for as long as I could. But we have to now think about who takes that job. Forward thinkers who are up front won't, because they won't feel comfortable with that management style. What they filled with was arse kissers. People who are happy to be followers of a leader, not people who themselves are leaders. Now, when I hear leadership, where are you going? Where are you leading them? And that's a question I like to ask managers, and it's why I'm a little bit of a disruptor. Because I ask those questions that the organizations of training don't tend to ask. I want to know, how far are you going to take them? Where are you taking them? What happens if some of them get stuck behind or left behind? What happens if some of them in the background can show you a better way to do things or a better way to go? Will you notice? Because if a simple replacement of a manager changes the entire atmosphere within a department, then these things we must pay attention to. Some managers, you've met these people. I'm on top of things around here. I expect my team to support me. I want you to look up to me. I expect you to give me your full support, because I'm the top guy and I'm on top of things around here. Many of you have met that manager in your time. Some of you may have married him. Ladies, I'm sorry. Now, some managers are always right. They put their team to one side because they're so right they don't need to pay attention to everything that's left. Now, what we know is when there's a lot left, there's a lot of options. When I'm right, the options aren't there, because options are things that are left. Options aren't the things that are right. Is this the way the dynamic seems to work? I don't make the rules, they're just that way around. And some managers take a very active role in the background, but they're not pushing people forwards. They only serve to hold them back. Just like some of these alleged leaders don't lead them anywhere. All they do is obstruct. And if you want to see obstruction really in its glorious form, you only have to look at the health service in the NHS health service in the UK and how managers tend to behave there. They tend to be very, very obstructive in the organization, which is why the clinicians are slowly driven crazy. They're driven to the edge, and some of them do go over the edge. I just got to check, how much more time do I have? I don't know how long I've been talking for. 15 minutes. Shall I sing a song? When I have a microphone in my hand, I kind of think I should sing a song. It's not necessarily the best thing, or the best singing voice. I think here's the thing that I really want to, for people to take away with them. Now, metaphor is told in story, is told in your culture. It's told by individuals, it's told by organizations. And organizational identity is a very big thing. Google organizes itself like a university. So did Microsoft. Except Google went for the sabbatical year organization. Microsoft went for the academic year as their organization, organizational identity. The metaphor that is conveyed by an organization may not be the one that is intended by the organization. For example, one organization I worked for, it was an American company. Their tagline, investors in people. The employee is the most important asset to your company. Treat them well and your company will succeed. And they had these corporate slogans everywhere. It was on the badges, it was on the corporate merchandise, on the letterheads, all this investors in people. But they had a lot of problems, and they had walkouts, they had staff on strike, they had staff that were always off sick. Essentially, the employees had this attitude: if you didn't use up all your sick pay entitlements before the year was over, you're a fool. And so lots of long weekends, people always being ill on the Friday to have a longer weekend. And they said, Andy, can you do something about this? I said, sure I can. Let's go and find out what the metaphor is they have of you people. You people being the management, who told me We are investors in people. We invest in our employees. You see how many benefits we give our employees? Yeah. Let's go and talk to the people. So now I went and talked to the employees, and they started to tell me what it was like. Because I said to them, what's it like to work here? And they said, it's like war. Every day is a battle. I said, what sort of battle? It's a battle for survival. This is a cutthroat industry, and it's murder out there. People are literally dying out there. So, oh, literally? So what we had was management had a particular operating metaphor of investment. You don't invest in people. People aren't a commodity. Human resources. Humans are a resource. Well, that's nice, isn't it? It used to be called personnel. That was much nicer, much more accurate. That was a human resource. It was a battleground as far as the employees were concerned. And what they did on a daily basis was seek to protect themselves from management, the enemy. So from the factory floor, I phoned human resources. Because I said, I think you guys need to come down here and hear some of the things that I'm hearing. And on the internal phone system, when you dial in the number, the department you're phoning comes up on the little screen and the name of the department. The name of the human resources department on the phone system was the war room. The war room. And I thought, that's a little bit coincidental, don't you think? And when I asked them about it, they said, oh, that's just a joke. I'm not so sure, it's just a joke. These things go further. Now, management were trying to solve the problem with more investment. What I arranged was they needed to call a truce. Now, truce is not the same as peace. Truce is we both have weapons drawn, but we agree not to use them for a period of time. Let's start there. I taught management to use the language of truce, the language of the battlefield when the battle is being drawn to a close. Now, what happens after a battle? Then we go from truce to peace, and then we rebuild. And within those landscapes, you have to rebuild the relationships. And the language of the management must reflect that. But as long as they're going, we invest in our employees, we're investors in people, what all the employees know is it's not true and you can't trust them. So by changing just a few of the sentences, by getting rid of those logos, how about investing in peace? How about investing in rebuilding the organization around the structure that people actually understand it to be? Let's start there. We can start to create very significant organizational change. Individuals use these words. We call these words idioms. Little phrases, little expressions. I'm taking the lead. Well, who are you leading and where are you leading them to? How far are you leading them? What are the steps that you're taking? Are the people you're leading able to take those steps? Are the instructions you're using and to facilitate this, are they matching the thing that you're claiming? Or are you doing one thing in your head and communicating something entirely unrelated? One of my observations is that I'm amazed human communication ever happens. Because when I listen to the words that people use and I match them to what other people respond with and then match them against what people intended, it's amazing how anything ever actually gets communicated. Individuals use idioms. So do countries. China, under Chairman Mao, the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward. How many people died as a result of that? A horrendous number of people. But as long as they invested in this idea of the Great Leap, I want to know a leap from where and where are they leaping to? How far is that leap? And once you've leapt, What happens next upon landing? And who is doing the leaping? Those are the questions I ask managers. These are the questions I ask psychiatrists. And I think it's why I drive them crazy, just a little bit, to try and get people thinking differently. In the UK at the moment, we have Brexit, which may or may not be on the news over here. This is a reorganization, a restructuring of trade agreements and all sorts of other stuff. It dominates our news on a daily basis. The people who are against this politically, and it's a fairly equal divide across the country, the people who are against this, we are driving off the edge of a cliff. The people who are for this, it's about freedom. They are two very, very opposite metaphors. People who believe that this reorganization politically is about freedom will dismiss the driving off a cliff because they don't relate to each other. If the anti-Brexit people wanted it to be something else, they would have to change their metaphor to one that's the opposite of freedom, that would actually fit the representation. Because then they could start to take the existing representation a person has and start to create doubt. We could do this at a propaganda level. We could do this at an individual consultation and therapy level. We could do this on a national level. This stuff is happening all the time. The issue is most people are not hearing it. They don't realize that people are communicating these idioms and just how much they mean. People talk about a pay rise. And I recommend everyone here who works for somebody else tomorrow go to work and ask for a pay rise. Just do that anyway. It's always worth asking. But why is it a pay rise? Why is it going up? And why do pay rises only tend to come with promotion and upward movement? Some people, there was a guy I used to work with, he was a nursing auxiliary, so he was a care assistant. He was superb. He was one of the best care assistants ever. And I always liked it when he was on duty. But his pay's fixed. The only way he could get a pay rise was to proportionally raise his status by becoming a qualified nurse. Now, without meaning to be nasty, he made a fantastic care assistant, the best I'd ever worked with, but a terrible registered nurse. Because incrementally we have made progression upwards with money, paired it with status. And to me, those things need to be uncoupled from each other. We can actually progress certain things. Some things can be moved to the right. We can make them more right in their job. Some people need more options than the left, and so forth. It just requires us to begin to hear the words that people use, and here's the novel thing, believe them literally. When you hear idioms, and when you hear metaphors, don't dismiss them as a mere figure of speech. Ask yourself, if that is literal, what is that? They stand up for themselves? How are they standing? They put their foot down? Which foot? They put their finger on it? Which finger? Start thinking in these terms, and a whole new world of communication starts to open up. And what you will hear will be so amazing, you'll begin to notice things that you've never noticed before. When I learned this material, it was like I had been deaf for the past 30 years and never heard what people say. I'm able to hear things now that I could never hear before. It's something anybody can learn. Now, just as a quick plug, this is the stuff that myself and Krish are seeking to basically expand. I know Krish has got the skills, the organization, to take this from a single idiomatic level way out there to a much bigger scale. We know firsthand the impact this has on individual success, on mental health, so happiness success, business success, whether it's small business or big business. And we're also very aware of how this operates politically. The scope here is enormous. So I would encourage you to have a little bigger look at this, and please get in touch with us if this is of interest to you. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm so pleased to have been talking to you all. I have to thank my two bosses here in India. for inviting me and hosting me. I thank you so much. And Krish, thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we'd like to take some questions. So maybe
Yeah, do we
take a seat.
have any
Take
questions?
some questions and please be. I want it to be real questions, not a statement or another metaphor which we have to decode it actually. So, anybody have questions, please? Yeah, there.
Somebody has a question?
No, microphone.
In software organization, so not only people as human resources, they're also called as full-time equivalents, FTEs. For example, project I need 10 people, I call 10 FTEs. Or sometimes a person will be working for 2 projects, then I'll say 10.5 FT for one project and 5.5 FT for another project. So do you have any comments on that term, FT?
I'm just going to ask for a clarification on a few points, because there's some words that I don't recognize.
Full-time employees. He's talking about commodity, making employees into commodities and getting, you need 5.5 employees and 4.5.
This is horrible. This is really, really horrible. The moment we depersonalize a person, we make them a non-person. And there's a whole field of study around non-person, that they're a commodity. Now, if I reduce you to a commodity, basically your feelings, your desires, your ambitions are irrelevant to the organization. I might as well make you a little Lego brick to be fit into a whole design of things. You know your place and you stick with your place. Personally, I think as we use more and more technological language, we identify people with those things. We depersonalize all interactions. Where this ends up is really simple. At the moment, in large parts of the world, the marketplace, where things are traded, is a social activity and a central point of culture and a central point of community. Massive amounts of social and cultural information are transmitted at the marketplace. In other parts of the world where they have huge social problems, we've got them starting in the UK, I see this in America, but nowhere greater than in Japan. Everything is depersonalized. Now it comes out of a machine, and there is no market. Everything now is done through technology, and that central thing is lost. In the workplace, a lot of our interactions with people are not technological. They're not mathematical, they're social. And organizations that start getting rid of all of those social things are going to build themselves big problems in the future. There'll be depression, there'll be anxiety, there'll be absenteeism, they'll have heavily medicated employees who are medicated to cope with work. And that is a terrible future to have. I don't know if that answers your question, and I'm sorry to be very pessimistic, but those sort of things make me fearful. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Andy, for your excellent presentation. And I'm meeting Krish again. I had attended his Metaphors for Movement session in NLP, and I'm a master practitioner in NLP, so it was quite an interesting session. And I actually felt that there is a confusion within me. Are metaphors also like the tagline of a company? For example, when you see a brand, you see there's this USP or this tagline that they say, or is it in the vision or the mission statement? Is this metaphor anyway connected to this? Because these two things are the soul of business. And when you're talking about metaphors, it's all about communication in general. So how would you connect these, the core things in a company, one which is a brand as identified, the other is inside the company where it is floating around within the heart and soul of the employees. So I'm a bit confused. Thank you.
So thank you. This is a fantastic question. So what we've got is our organization. So if we're a company here with a product that goes out there with a brand, how we've organized ourselves here, metaphorically speaking, may or may not be related to the brand image that the customer sees. Now, if I am the boss and I've organized this as a tightly run ship, That's my metaphor. It's a ship metaphor. I run a tight ship here. You're my crew. I don't want anyone going overboard. And I want total dedication from everybody, because you never get to go home, because you're always on the ship. You're always on board. Either you're on board or you're not. If you're not on board, you can leave. So imagine that's my operating metaphor. That may not necessarily have anything to do with the brand image that's out there. It also may have nothing to do with how the organization is run, or how you, the employees, perceive the thing to be. And so what I'm looking for in areas of conflict is, do these things line up meaningfully? Or are they all in conflict with each other? Because if in my head I've got a tightly run ship, and I'm going places, we are going places, but you don't want to go anywhere, you just want to do your job and go home, then we're going to have sources of conflict. So that's what I'm looking for, is when there's a mismatch between the different metaphorical representations. Not all, as the company gets bigger, you're going to have different departmental metaphors as well, which may not be related to each other. So, for example, the one that Krish was talking about, where the lady, my business is my baby, and it's 7 years old, that tells us there's a big problem there. But it also tells us the relationship of the person with the company. Imagine that's at a bigger scale, and there's employees there. She treats them like children. And they might be adults who are older than her, who know more than her, but she still treats them like children. So now we can start to deduce the quality of the workplace interactions that happen. There's other stuff that gets given away. I'll tell you a little secret here. When you look at advertising, or those success courses, those marketing courses, how to get rich quick, look for mismatches in the metaphor. I can help you break free from the limitations that block your path. Breaking free from a blockage on a path doesn't work. Blockages on a path either stop you or trip you up. I can help you rise above the things that hold you back. Well, like a balloon on a string, is that how that works? Now, when you hear those mismatches, there's one of two possibilities. The copywriter of the advert didn't know what they were doing, or if it's a business owner who's written that, either they don't know what they're doing or they're lying. And I always look very, very carefully at mismatches in advertising metaphor. And Facebook advertising is amazing when you look at the things that people claim. Does that help answer the question? It's a huge, huge subject. I actually do have a whole course on this. Oddly enough, I'm teaching it in Japan very, very soon, October, if anyone wants to come, but we could also do it here. Thank you. I think so. Yes. Now, if you've got multiple leaders, they may not all see themselves as leaders. It might well be that's how they're referred to. Now, are they congruent with their message between them? Are they congruent in the communication of that message to the workforce and with each other? The chances are the more people are involved, the more incongruent it will become. And so the greater the source of conflict. I generally assume everyone wants to be successful in a business. That's why they're there. The ideal thing is I do less hours, less stress, and more money. Generally, that's what people want. The reason they get into conflict is not necessarily because they're bad people or anything else. The most common reason is there's a conflict in the communication that none of them are hearing correctly. Like, I want to move forward, I want to get bigger. They don't work with each other. Thank you.
Mr. Andrew, it was a very good, an eye-opening program for us. We could learn certain things. Because I have a small doubt. You were talking of two types of leaders. One in the background and then influencing people forward. Another one trying to be in the lead and expecting people to follow him. Is it not possible for a person, to be two type?
Yes.
Changing roles depending on the situation.
I'm so glad you said that. There's actually seven basic positions somebody can take. Now, people tend to have a preference as to their own preferred, what I call the bias, positional bias. However, the best leaders are the ones that are able to move between all 7 according to the context and the requirements of it. So yeah, the greater the flexibility, the greater the manager. I've got to tell you, I'm absolutely the best manager ever. I am. I'm absolutely the best. For exactly the same reason, I am the best parent. I'm an expert parent. The reason being, I've never managed, and I don't have any children. So reality has never got in the way of a really, really good theory. But and I know that I have a very simple position, which is up front, people behind. If you can't keep up, bye. That's why I'm not a manager. That's not my thing. So yeah, the flexibility between them wins. Little boast here. I used to work in brain surgery. That was my main area of work when I was a nurse. I desperately wanted to find somebody who worked as a rocket scientist, because I thought it'd be great to go to parties with a rocket scientist and someone who worked in brain surgery. It'd just be fantastic for the girls. But that never happened. I never got invited to parties. In brain surgery, we had 5 managers, and it was absolutely superb department. These people were just amazing. I was very, very low down in the hierarchy. Each manager had a personal bias and their leadership. So one of them was very much involved in the team. One was very much a leader. Another one was in the background, pushing people forwards. We had the one who was never there. She basically left the department to one side and she just disappeared. She was never there. So the department worked so well because we didn't have one person with all 7 positions, but 5 of those different positions were covered by 5 different people. Different organizations, it depends on what your role is. If it's just you, you've got to have the flexibility. If it's more than just you, you can start to divide up the territory between how people lead, or in the background, or their right, and so forth. Thank you.
Yeah, no more questions. It looks like everybody is very clear about metaphor. Good. Thank you, Andrew. It's been a fascinating evening, and I think most of us will move out of this hall getting more insight about metaphor of business and more wiser in whatever they do. And it's a pleasure having you with us. I'm quite sure we're going to have you next 3 days. We'll keep meeting. May I request Srikanth to join me in presenting Momentum on behalf of MMA, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. It's a pleasure having you all. And till we meet again, goodbye. Get back home safely. And see you next time in MMA event. Good night.